പോളണ്ടിൽ എന്ത് സംഭവിച്ചു?
പോളണ്ടിനെ പറ്റി നീ ഒരു അക്ഷരം മിണ്ടരുത്.
Hey, Catherine.
Hi, Harsha. How are you today?
How are you? I'm great.
Yeah, I'm good too. We're back with episode 3 and taking a little bit of a break from our themes. And after the last episode's very wide-ranging discussion about the releases that went straight to streaming in 2020, so today we decided to maybe just do a small wrap-up of 2020 films with a few films that stood out for each of us. Not necessarily the films that might be considered the best of 2020 in some objective sense, but maybe a little more subjective for films that appealed to each of us.
Yep. I am going to talk about Varane Avashyamund, Mallu, and Anjaam. And what about you, Catherine?
For me, here I go trying to pronounce Varane Avashyamund, Halal Love Story, which I'll only talk on briefly because we talked a lot about it in the last episode, and I'm going to need help.
Pabam
Kallariyate.
Kallariyate. Yep.
I'm getting better. Thank you for your help. So I suggested kind of an order, starting with Halal Love Story, and I gushed a lot about it on the last episode, so it probably wouldn't be any surprise to you or to anybody that it ended up being one of the films that stood out for me in 2020. For many of the reasons we touched on, a little unpretentious film about a community coming together. I loved the cast. I loved the idea of a film within a film. I loved the idea of a community setting out to make a film that adhered to their beliefs and allowed them to see themselves and their beliefs represented in the media they want to consume. I don't think I have to say much more than that. It was a little film that I loved from beginning to end.
Yes, it is a lovely little film. Definitely agree. My first film that I chose is Mallu, which is actually quite an odd film for me. I actually had very little context about this movie before I actually started watching it. It didn't get a lot of attention from, I think, the Malayalam film watching community, the online crowd, despite it being available on through Amazon Prime. So it was available as pretty early on through streaming. The central theme of the movie is loyalty and friendship. If you haven't guessed already, about Malayalis living in the Gulf, Al Mallu, which means the Malayali. And it's very low budget, but it's got an interesting concept. Namita Pramod plays the lead. She's a finance professional and she's very ambitious and hardworking. She wants to make a good life for herself and her parents. She lives with 4 roommates, couple of other Malayalis, 1 Filipino. I really like the random bits of Tagalog that were dropped into the movie. We don't get to see a lot of interactions between Malayalis and Filipinos in Malayalam films, despite the fact that those 2 communities in abroad are really intertwined because of the nursing field. And Naina, the character Namita plays, is engaged to this really rich man. But things go badly. She never had a good feeling about this guy, but her friends and family were like, he sent his dad to talk to you to make the proposal, so he's really genuine about it. And she gets over her bad feelings to commit to this guy. But then he non-consensually records her changing clothes in some sort of state of undress, and then he tells her that he's actually engaged to this Malayali heiress in Dubai, just like his family. He says he wants to keep seeing her, as a like an extramarital affair, and she gets very upset and she breaks up with him. And then he threatens her with the video he had recorded of her. And the secondary lead is played by this new actor. Never seen him in anything before, Fariz Majid. He plays Shri, who's just arrived from Saudi after Naina's engagement breaks up, and he joins as like a junior to her in her company. And he's terrified of women, so she's kind of his boss, and he's terrified of women, even though like all the girls in the company think he's cute and are trying to get his attention. Naina had to take a mental health break from work after her engagement, and she starts taking some meds for anxiety, and so she starts falling behind in her work. Shri steps in to help cover for her, and they become friends. And I think his nervousness about women and like her as a boss makes her feel safe with him in a way that maybe her ex-fiance had kind of violated her trust, so she has a hard time trusting men. She lives in an apartment with a bunch of other bachelors, and in a flat that's owned by a married couple who are expecting a child. So these bachelors kind of form an extended family around them, and Shri invites Naina to become a part of this this extended network of found family as well. The tail end of the film explores why Shri's so scared of women, and it reveals to us what exactly went down with Naina and her ex-fiance and how she gets back at him. It's a weirdly directed and paced film for the kind of substantial story it's telling, right?
It is, and you're right. It was a film I probably wouldn't have got to it unless because I had decided to go down all of the list of things that I could find on streaming. There are some. I mean, it's obvious that it's a bit low budget, and some of the choices are made by that. But that's, for me, that's not enough to ruin a film. I do like some of the things it does. I like the ideas of, their various found families, which I guess happens, with people living in the Gulf because you're away from family. So you build these little friendships that become kind of like family groupings. I like those kind of things. I did wonder at times if the film wasn't sure exactly what story it wanted to tell, particularly in like I didn't find Shri's story as well developed as I might have, and there's a very odd song near the end of the film where Lal comes in to play a priest, and I know when I wrote a review I was sort of torn because I like wedding songs and his message is actually very uplifting, but it was a very odd choice at that point in the film.
Yes. So as I was watching this, I was like, this movie was clearly made for the guy who plays Shri to get like some sort of starring role. This wasn't like made because somebody. I mean, like I'm sure the scriptwriter or the guy who came up with the story was like, I want this important story told. But the fact that it was developed and got made was solely because Fariz Majid needed a starring role. And I did look it up, and so the producer is somebody called Sajil Majid, we assume a relation, and the actor who plays the terrible ex-fiance is Anup Majid, so we are assuming another relation. And that also makes sense. They probably paid boatloads of money for Lal to make that appearance, for Mia George to make that appearance as like the heiress.
Yep.
And yeah, obviously, Naminda Pramod got paid tons of money because she never acts in most like movies like these. She usually plays like the girlfriend or something in like high budget movies.
And at one point, the film sort of tries to turn itself into a thriller as well. There's a woman,
yes,
the friend who ends up dead, and it like there's the mystery around that and solving it. And I sort of felt at times it was trying to do too many things rather than focus on the one story and maybe making some of those things a little, I mean, And yet I didn't, it. I wasn't offended watching it. I mean, that sounds like a terrible thing to say. Like some films make me incredibly angry.
I think this movie had its heart in the right place.
Yes, I
The
agree.
the morals it espoused were correct. Like for it seemed it aligned with my morals. That women shouldn't be blamed for living their lives, and that's kind of the speech. I mean, like Law literally like gives a speech about it at
Yes.
the end of the movie. And you're right; it does turn into a mystery. I actually saw a thread between this and See You Soon. Apart from the Malayalis in the
Yes.
Gulf thing. This is not a computer screen film, but the way the mystery unravels is also told through technology and what happens on your phone and computer, things like that. Um, I remember talking to a screenwriter who works in Hindi films in like 2010ish, 2011, and I remember him saying that like MMS films like Ragini MMS, Love, Sex or Dhoka, or Chapa Kurush in Malayalam were boring at that time, but we're seeing how the idea of technology revealing some deeper truths about us as people is definitely something that has kept evolving, and we're seeing some interesting things happening. Yeah, as you said, it was an interesting watch for me. It was the ending song was weird, but the actual like conclusion of the movie was satisfying for me.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I
yeah,
agree.
and spoiler, so anybody who wants to watch this can stop now. So Shree's fear of women is traced back to a childhood sexual abuse by a family friend of his, and this is the second time in movies that we're seeing boy children, like boys who were subject to sexual abuse as children. After Kure, talking about like the sort of long-lasting effect on their lives, and this will come into play later when I talk about one of my other movies. The way Malayalam cinema isn't afraid of touching childhood sexual abuse anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure I enjoyed as much how it was handled. I think he got short shrift a little bit in but I do think it was really interesting that they decided to raise that as one of the issues that this film deals with.
And I think part of it was, well, yes, I think they wanted to address this as a serious issue, but I think they also wanted to justify the reasons you would separate from your family of origin, and decide that their opinion of you doesn't matter, and that your found family is actually can be enough, and you don't need to make yourself less to be accepted by your family of origin.
So I think we'd both recommend that people take a chance on it with, a few not misgivings, but going in with the idea that it's a film that has a certain direction it wants to go in. It deals with certain issues. It's a platform to launch the actor
Faris
playing
Majid.
Shri. Yeah,
We don't know his name, but we keep reminding ourselves.
and I think I recommended that maybe we go to your next choice, which is Anjaam Pathiraa next.
Anjaam. Yes. So the next film I wanted to talk about was Anjaam Pathiraa. This is a director directed by Mithun Manuel Thomas, the guy behind the Odd franchise, as well as he wrote one of my favorite Malayalam films of all times, Om Shanti Oshana. He is a really interesting figure in Malayalam cinema. He does come out with these unexpected stories, like going from like Om Shanti Oshana to Ada to Anne Maria Kalipilana, which is also about like a little girl, and Alamara, and now Anjaam Pathiraa. It's a full-on like thriller following a serial killing in the city of Kochi of police officers. Anwar Hussain, which is played by Kunjako Balaban, is he's a clinical psychologist, and he wants to become a criminal psychologist. So he's doing his PhD, and he wants to get some fieldwork experience. So he gets in touch with this police officer who is played by this guy who's become a stalwart of playing this kind of characters, Jinu Joseph. Jinu Joseph plays an ACP called Anya, and they have like a big brother little brother relationship, it seems, and Anwar really trusts him. So ACP Anil kind of brings him into this, calls him in because there's been a murder of a police officer after he went missing for a day or so, and says that, hey, you can get some experience for your for your field work, and this turns into a serial killing that is called the Nidhi Devata Kolabadanga, which means the lady, the goddess of justice murders, because the killer leaves a Lady Justice statue at each of the with each of the bodies, and instead of like Lady Justice being blind, she has very deep defined eyes, and she has the face of a Malayali woman rather than a Greek woman, as they emphasize in the movie. And some of the other characters are
the DCP, Catherine Maria.
Yes. So Unimaya Prasad plays DCP Catherine, who is like the boss leading this investigation, and she is under a lot of pressure from the Kerala police to find the people who are murdering police officers, and she's kind of keeps coming up at dead ends, and they keep losing. By the time they've lost like 4 police officers, they're taken off the case, and like a new team's brought in to investigate. And so then Anwar starts investigating on his own, and he finds that there's actually a secret that ACP Anil has been keeping from him, and that there's actually like something that ties these serial killings together beyond them being police officers.
This was a film I actually got to see in the theater because it came out early enough that the group here that organizes these things brought it in. And I really enjoyed it. And it really was a departure for Mid-Manuel Thomas. And I like that. I like a filmmaker who wants to take chances or move in different directions or try something different. I also, maybe we can talk a little bit about Kunchako Bobbin, because I find his career and how he's sort of rebuilding his career after taking a break for a while and trying to shed the whole chocolate boy image, which I've read he's never been comfortable with. But I really sort of thought this was another interesting choice for him.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen him play too many. We've seen him play serious people, but he's one of those actors who's never played a cop. I don't think he's ever played a cop. I can't remember now. Now, people, please correct me if I'm wrong, but typically playing a cop is like something that like Malayalam movie actors just do because it's part of their like repertoire of roles. But I don't think he's ever played a cop, and this is like the closest thing he's done to being a cop.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, I can think of Niven Pauly has played a cop. DQ
Pathiraa is always playing a cop.
Dulquer has played a cop. Yeah, it seems to be some kind of rite of passage. You have to have the tick the cop box off your resume.
Even Jayasuriya, who's like a contemporary of Kunchako Bobins, has like played a cop.
Yep.
He's too soft in a lot of ways, so it makes sense that he plays like the cerebral type of investigator. And the movie I kept comparing this to, actually less, not very much to this movie's favor, is Munarita, which is about another potential serial killer. And, you know, the whole going into the jail to talk to a serial killer or guy who's been accused of serial killing. I found the fact that the acting was very stilted in this movie and stiff. Like, they couldn't, like, everybody was like, we're playing a cop, so we're all gonna be like, we're gonna act like this. We're gonna act in like this very stuffed way, and everybody's tense all the time. But like, especially the actress playing Catherine Maria, I felt like she wasn't served very well with the dialogue she was given, because all she had to do was like reprimand her subordinates, and I felt like I wish like we had a little more insight into her personal life. We got some insights into both Anwar's personal life, and we got some insights into Anil's personal life, but it was interesting that she never got, as the senior investigator, some sort of context to her.
One of the things that stood out for me, though, was that little cameo by Indrans as Ripper Ravi, where he's going
I thought it was so good.
My only frustration was that much of that interaction was not subtitled.
Ah, okay. So I didn't watch this with subtitles at all. I watched it on MX Player, and it didn't have any subtitles at all.
I mean, I got enough of it to realize how truly terrifying that character is. I'm constantly amazed at Indrans, who can come in and do something like this, and just make. I think that was the most impactful character for me in the whole film. He was truly creepy.
I think we've discussed before how Indrans, in this stage of his career, in sort of this post New Generation era, now New Generation and this post New Generation era, he's really livens up any movie he's in now, because you expect something weird, something interesting, something unique that only he can bring. And I think because he's such a slight man, the fact that he's done these horrible things has really makes it even more terrifying.
And he's so chilling when and I love the fact that Anwar is looking for reasons behind killings. He's looking for motive. And Ripper Ravi says to him something like, it's really thrilling just to bash someone's head in. Like, that's what drives me. And it's not what Anwar is expecting. Like, it really doesn't matter who the person is, or, you know, if they've been whatever. It's just, this is the moment where I want the thrill of killing someone. And he just manages to deliver that in a way that is like, oh, I think I was clutching at myself in the theater.
Absolutely. This is, it becomes a lot more action oriented than I thought it was going to become. with, you know, when we start unraveling what ACP Anil's story is. And Sharafuddin actually plays a very, very interesting character, and he's an actor I really enjoy watching. He sometimes gets to play leads, but a lot of the time he gets to play these like side characters, and I'm really, really happy that he got to play like a full on negative role in this. I thought the action was really good. Like, he was really good in the action scenes. And I don't know if he had, like, a stunt double. I felt like he did have a stunt double because a lot of the time it didn't look like him who was doing the action scenes. But I was really impressed by those scenes. And it, like, it felt very physical and, like, real in a way that I haven't experienced a lot of Indian cinema doing action. Like, typically Indian cinema's action is like dishum and you know, like, it's typically Hong Kong cinema that does action really well. And I was really impressed by those scenes with the physical violence.
I think the other thing that stood out for me too is the way that Anwar is trying to look at things from a Kerala perspective. He's trying to look at Kerala society and find motivations for the crimes rather than rely on stuff that comes from outside of Kerala. I mean, he's studying, he's learning all of that, but he also wants to explore what might be particularly Kerala in the crimes that he's looking at.
Yeah, I think sort of the thesis of his whole viewpoint about crime is that it's a product of the society that it's happening in, and he says that, you know, he's giving a lecture at a college that his wife teaches at. She's in psychology too, and he says that, you know, instead of looking outside, look at Dr. Benjamin Lewis, who is Sharafuddin's character. Look at his writings about crime and serial killings, and you might have a better understanding of what's happening here. And, you know, I think that's kind of I would say that if there's a conclusion to this, is that crime is kind of a product of the society it's from. And I will say, this is another movie. Once again, there's child sexual abuse. But what I've found is that still, in a more progressive era where we're comfortable talking about childhood sexual abuse, we're finding that when girls get sexually abused, they think about the impact on their family and society, which is what this movie is about. But when boys get sexually abused, we only think about the impact on them as individuals. I was really disappointed that I didn't want to know about Rebecca, the child who is sexually abused in this movie. I didn't want to know what, you know, I didn't want to give her a happy ending, or anything like that. And I was actually relieved that they didn't, like, at the end, they didn't pan out to show Rebecca with her child, like, raising the child and stuff like that. They didn't give it, like, a happy ending. But I did want to know about it as an impact on her as an individual, because we see the impact on her family and on the larger society where this crime has happened. But we never get to see, how did this affect her development? I was saddened by that, I think. I think I wanted, this was, it was very male-centric, and both the character of the DCP, Catherine Maria, and Rebecca, the survivor of sexual abuse, I think deserved more from this movie.
Yeah, and I liked the fact that the DCP in charge was a woman. But you're right, she's often just, you know, given to spouting lines that don't mean a lot, reprimanding people, and it is a little frustrating that it could have been much more.
I think the only time I got anything like, oh, there's, you know, it felt like they were trying to give her a context is when, you know, after they're taken off the case, Anil and her go have a drink, and they're, like, talking about, like, what it meant to them to be taken off the case. And I was like, oh, I'm getting a little bit more from her. But yeah, I hope in the sequel, I don't know, probably it's just going to be about Umber because that's clearly what the sequel is interested in. I hope we get a little bit more about her as a person because she seems like a very upstanding officer.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the sequel. Like I got enough, I was engaged enough with the first film, and its themes and its characters that I would be very happy to see. It would be nice to see some of these things solved, made better, and maybe sometimes with a second crack at characters that can make a difference too.
I hope so. I hope we get more on Rebecca. I hope she's like a crazy serial killer too. I hope we get more out of that.
Well, and
yeah,
that would be interesting too because there are many fewer women serial killers, and it would be really interesting to see that explored. Look, we've given them an idea if they haven't written it already.
Take us up, Mrs. Manuel Thomas. We're giving you a free idea. I did think one of the honestly, this movie was a twist. I couldn't see what was coming, and that is the best thing I could say about this movie is that I honestly didn't see the twist coming, and that was great because I thought this was going to be like an unabashed celebration of Kerala Police, and it turns out it's not. It wasn't, and it got very complicated at the end.
It did, and I agree. I really liked that because I've spoken before about how if I twig to something early in the film, it destroys the film for me, and that's a very personal experience. And this time I was kept guessing right to the end. And that's always a satisfying experience with a film.
Yeah. And if you're into twist endings, everybody watch Munariba because that has a twist ending. I still get heebie-jeebies thinking about it.
So, should we move on to the next film?
Yes.
And this is one I don't think you've watched, but I did.
I haven't. Pabam cheyatava.
And it is, it's very actually easy to sum up because it opens with two apparently affluent Christian families arranging a wedding. And the one family that's at the center of this, with the groom's family, is talking about they're going to host the betrothal ceremony and celebration afterwards, and the bride's family is going to host the wedding. But for their family, they talk about setting a good example because poor people will follow rich people, and if rich people do things in a way that's too extravagant, then poor people will try and do it, and that's not good. So they've warned the bride's family that it's going to be a much lower key event than they're expecting, and they can do whatever they want with the wedding. But we discover after the bride's family leaves that the reason they are arranging this marriage is because the bride's family is very wealthy, much more wealthy than they appear to be, and the groom's family is desperate for money.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's quite funny. The minute the bride's family leaves, they all run for the briefcase with the money, and the one, he's not the eldest brother, but the one brother who is acting as the head, Roy, played by Vinay Fort. He's the one sort of managing the money and doling it out to people and juggling all of these balls because they've got to pay for the betrothal celebration. They've got money lenders that they have to pay off.
And we're talking about the dowry that the girl's family gives.
Yes.
The boy's family.
Yes. So then the rest of the film is pretty much set with the betrothal ceremony in the church and the celebration afterwards. And quite honestly, it just completely devolves into chaos. The title of the film is, in English, is "He Without Sin Who Let He Without Sin Cast the First Stone." And the backbone of this film it's kind of the seven deadly sins plus the Ten Commandments and the breaking of the Ten Commandments. And every single person in this film is someone who is sinning or has a secret or indulges in behavior that really isn't terribly Christian. But we don't know that with everyone. It's just this slow, over the course of the film, this slow reveal of each person. And it's a very big extended cast, because it's, families and friends. And the groom at some point is actually shown to be more obsessed with making the wedding videos. And he and his crew are constantly in the background shooting these wedding videos. And that it becomes quite key because one of the cameras they have is a drone camera. So the drone camera goes around the celebration and reveals things that people probably wouldn't prefer to have revealed. There's the bride, as we discover, the bride doesn't come to the meeting between the two families. And when her family offers her phone number to the groom, the older brother says, no, he doesn't need that. They don't need to meet. His motivation is to keep everybody apart so that he can get the money and deal with it. And they even sort of tell the father of the bride that, here, this is half the dowry, and we expect the other half of the dowry the morning of the ceremony at the church. And if you don't send it, groom doesn't show up. And I don't think they really believe him. But then they're in the church wondering, well, where is the groom? Where is the groom? Well, they're all sitting at home waiting for the money to arrive in the bank account. And then they go to the church. And then they discover that's when they meet the bride. And it becomes quite apparent that the reason they were very willing to, not ask too many questions in setting up this marriage is that the bride has some mental issues. Mm-hmm. She's very, her father says we've spoiled her and she's mischievous, but it's really beyond that. She has no filter. The actress who plays her,
Shanti Balachandran.
Yeah. This was a line that could very easily have been crossed and ended up dreadful, but she never crosses that line. But she's always sort of, she's the eldest brother in the family spends his days smoking marijuana and listening to jazz music, and he's the one who hires the band, which is all this loungy jazz music, and everybody's complaining about it. But she gets them to play more upbeat things, and she starts dancing, and she never stops. And then they make her to go to take the pictures for the album, and she's getting the groom to piggyback her and to to lift her and carry her, and she's really wild. And she's very funny. But at that point, the parents are standing there watching her behavior, and the father says, "What's going on with her?" And the mother says, "Well, you know what she's like." And the father says, "I do, but this is much worse than she usually is." And the mother says, "Well, I forgot to give her medication." So at some point, they have to call her doctor in to give her medication. And everything just sort of devolves into chaos. There's a hysterical character who is... who works for the catering company that they've hired for the celebration. And when we first meet him, he's sitting out the back, supposed to be washing dishes, and he's listening to some old Malayalam movie song, and he's very mopey and melancholy. And his boss comes out and says, "She left you 12 years ago. You have to get over her." He's been perpetually depressed about this woman who left him. and he's part of the catering team, and one of the daughters of the groom's family, one of the sisters, is the woman that left, and she goes up to get food as he serves her, and she's asking him questions, and it turns out there's a misunderstanding between the two of them. Like, the whole film is like this, with these little details in the background, secrets that get revealed. I laughed. I laughed so much the first time, and I thought, okay, well, I've seen it now. I think I laughed even more picking up little details the second time through. It's again one of these films like Mallu that very few people were talking about, particularly as we hit year-end lists. But incredibly, incredibly funny, and I think one of my favorites from last year.
You really sold it for me. I really want to watch this now. I would say one of the cast members is Alencia Le Lopez, and he's had some sexual harassment allegations against him. So, be warned for people who want to avoid movies with problematic people.
That's actually here. I will give a spoiler. He actually plays a man who turns up at the celebration, and they're all being very polite to him because he's arrived. He's obviously a guest, and yet they can't place who he is. And they're part of the thing that's going on is they're trying to figure out who he is, and he reveals that he's actually the father of the groom. And it gets worse. It gets worse because he was the former parish priest in this parish.
Oh, God.
And he's come to the wedding to blackmail the family. Like, his character is really skeezy. So yeah, it's just one more of these things and the whole idea is this exploration in a very dark and funny way of people's moralities, and but by the time we get to the reveal about his character, and he's like a priest who's been defrocked because he's terrible. He's a terrible, terrible, terrible character. So yeah.
So we've got 3 priests in a row. At least 2 of whom are creeps or terrible people. And we've got 2 drones, like in these last 2 movies. Drones that uncover things. We've got a lot of binding themes this year.
But that leads us to our final film. I don't know about you, but I think this was probably my favorite film of the year.
It was just pure joy. It was really fun and everything we needed during a pandemic.
So the last film is
from Netflix, Varane Avashyamund,
directed by Anup Satyan. At some point, we're going to talk about nepotism, film families, and one of the things that strikes me about this film is Dulquer's first production from his production house, and I've mentioned before, I think he makes sort of interesting choices in connecting himself with friends and sort of families in the business for his productions. So you've got, Anup Satyan, the son of Satya Nantikat. You've got a whole range of you've got a whole range of people involved in this film who have connections to other people, and yet everything about this film works. Everything about this film, you don't feel like people are just getting by on their connections alone.
I think, except for Shobana, who we've not seen in a little bit, this I think in a different industry, in a different film, this could have been, they could have spent a lot of time revisiting their fathers or mothers movies back in the day and like making references to it constantly. Like that that would have definitely happened in a film like this in Hindi, probably in Telugu too.
Well, and there actually let's start by getting you to give a little summary of what the film's about.
Sure. Yeah. So this is about a bunch of people who live in a society, in a flat, in a building in Chennai. The lead is played by Kalyani Priyadarshan, who is this young woman with raised by a single mother, played by Shobana. They just moved to Chennai, and Kalyani's Varane Avashyamund means groom wanted, and Kalyani's character Nikki is very insistent she will only have an arranged marriage because her mom had a love marriage and she got divorced from Nikki's dad. So she says she's very insistent that she's decent, quote unquote, and that she will only marry somebody who's been arranged. And so the first, like, there's this whole her developing a relationship with a guy she's met on one of the matrimonial sites, and then we're at the same time we're meeting everybody who lives in this building, including Dulquer's character who's like a young man with, we think we're led to assume, his grandmother and his younger brother. There's Suresh Gopi's character. He's a retired military guy who's all alone and has a bunch of anger issues, so he doesn't get along with everybody else in the building. There's the lady who comes to do cooking and cleaning for people in the building. There's other laborers and their families who live like on the top of on the terrace in a little like one room shed or something, and there's a bunch of, there's people who own other flats in the building who also live in the building, like a Tamil couple. So basically, there's a bunch of Malayalis, there's a few Tamil people, and that's what the story revolves around. Dulquer has his girlfriend at work, and she's kind of playing him. It seems like she wants to move abroad, and he doesn't want to, so they're always fighting about it. And Shobana and Suresh Gopi's character obviously form a connection because he starts going to like to anger management sessions with a therapist, and so he starts to form a connection with her as two single older people.
I love this film. I love this film so much that I can just gush and I want to explain every little nub of it. I mean, I adore Shobana.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest selling point of this movie is Shobana.
And they make this joke that everybody says, "Oh, she looks like the actress Shobana."
Shobana, yes.
Which is cute. They don't overplay it too much, but it's really cute. The other thing I liked about this was Suresh Gopi playing against type. Because I think
playing into type and then against type.
Yes, because he often plays, these, heroic policemen or, vigilante lawyers or military men, and, as very much as hero films. So he is still playing the retired army officer, but it's really lovely that he has to sort of pull, and he's got a very distinctive dialogue delivery for those types of roles. And it's really lovely to see him sort of pull back on that, to realize that he's got these anger management issues and they need to be solved. I love the moment where the therapist says he needs to get a pet and suggests a fish. So his friend takes him to the pet store and gets the fish, and he's looking at the Doberman. and brings home the Doberman, which it's sort of like it's almost at the beginning that he really doesn't even know how to deal with the Doberman, even though this is the dog he's chosen, and everybody else has to give him advice about what to do with the Doberman. But I really loved that, as you said, playing to type but also against type. I also like the fact that here we have a mature couple entering into a romance. And how that, I think Nikki, the daughter, reacts in a way that's probably very expected. Because her relationship that she finally feels is going to be arranged with the chocolate maker, and it ends up broken off because he can't accept the fact that her mother might have another man in her life. I think her reaction is quite what you would expect in that situation, and the relationship between mother and daughter too. I mean, they're sort of, Nikki at moments tries to find the thing that's the most hurtful to say, because she's hurt as well.
Yeah, I just liked that a lot of times you see single moms in movies and they're just like hopelessly devoted to their children. And fair enough, a lot of single moms are hopelessly devoted to their children. But I just really like that Shobana's character was a woman who was she was on her own journey, like that was independent of her child. She's teaching at the French Alliance. She's got her own. She's learning dance, or she's still practicing dance. She's singing, and she's not wrapped up in this whole arranged marriage business that her daughter has going on. She's supportive, but she's not like wrapped up in it. And I think, we get the idea from her cousin who comes to visit her all the time that she's always been like this. She's always been an independent woman who's done her own thing and made her own choices and taken, she's not apologetic about it. And I think, we get these insights into Nikki that she wishes her mother was more like the kind of devoted only to her child single mother, and the reason she's very interested in the guy that she thought she was gonna get engaged to was because he had a mother played by Urvashi, who is the very motherly, doting type of mother, and I think it's actually like there's a lot of playing to type and playing. Because we do get that image of Shobana as like this kind of single woman who's been doing her own thing her whole life. She has a daughter, and we get like Instagram stuff about her, but I don't, Shobana has never portrayed herself as that kind of like, I'm just going to be a housewife, that kind of person. And, and Urvashi's always had that little more like a homemaker vibe, even though, she's had her own interesting life. She's certainly not just a doting mom. So there's a lot of playing to type for the older actors.
And Urvashi's character, even though she is more the doting mom for Nikki, she's a dentist. She has her own profession.
She's a dentist, yes.
And when the relationship is broken off, Nikki says she's actually more sad to lose his mother. It's a really lovely character because she comes to see her to tell her that she shouldn't marry her son, that her son is more conservative than even she realized, and Nikki would be very unhappy. I was sort of blown away by that. Like, she's not being mean. She's like, I'm looking out for you because I do care about you.
Yes, we talk about how, in Anjaam Pathiraa, despite how often Catherine Murray is on screen, we get no insight into her as a person. But in this, Urvashi's not on screen that much, but when she is, we get so much insight into her as a person. She's in her dental practice. She's with her patients. She says get some insight into her marriage, saying, he's more like his dad than me, and we get that it's not probably the happiest marriage, and it's a really good example of how doing more with less.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I'm always happy when Urvashi shows up in a film as well. So it's like just another extra bonus, an extra layer that this film gets. I also like the fact that even for Bibish and Nikki, it's they get to know each other because they live in the same apartment complex. And it's only until very late in the film where they form a relationship. Up until then.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, well, it was interesting that we see that they're becoming their friends and that they're getting closer, but I think it's only when like Shobana's character tells Suresh Gopi's character, I think Nikki and Fraud are dating. They're like, oh, right, they are. We just, like, all this time they're standing together. We didn't realize. I mean, we could have realized because there were two young people in the building, but, like, we could have also just been a friendship. But, yeah, it's her mom who's, like, very chill with this. And so, yeah, I think they're dating.
Also, the scene where Nikki meets the major to talk to him, and it's like she's got this acceptance about the potential relationship between him and her mother. Mm-hmm. And she's sort of asking him, do you drink, do you smoke, like she's sort of vetting him a little bit.
Right, she's decided she's gonna be her mom's like the elder in the family to arrange the marriage or to figure it out. As you mentioned, the dog thing, I liked. I got a dog. I mean, my family's got a dog recently, so I just know how much more people talk to you if you have a dog. And the fact that, like, the kids wanted to come meet the dog and that he just started being more social because he had a dog was... Well, we don't talk about dogs in Malayalam cinema at all, so I was really charmed by that.
And I loved the fact, I mean, we come back to found families again, and people who live in this complex. What struck me was that doors are often left open, people coming in and out of their homes, people talk to each other, people gather, in front of the apartment building and talk about things. And I can see how sometimes that might be, a little problematic because everybody is in your business. But I also really like that idea. It's like, I wish I had an apartment on one of these floors and I could open the door and, talk to people or see the woman coming with her pressure cooker to cook meals or I really loved the relationships that kind of developed between all of these people living in this complex.
I read a review from I think, I don't know if it was by the Drangan or some other Tamil reviewer, who said that this Malayalam cinema has captured Chennai life more than any Tamil cinema, and I agree. It has a great sense of rootedness and a sense of place. I think I've never lived in Chennai, but I know about the French Alliance in Chennai. I didn't think Bhagyashree was the best option for dubbing Shobana for this movie because, I mean, you speak French more than I do, but I thought her accent was, like, way off, and I was having a hard time picking up what she was saying. Like, would she have been good enough to teach at the French Alliance?
That is a question I sort of batted around in my head, because obviously the three teachers who interview her at one point are very fluent or sound very fluent. I've recently had the instance, I'm watching a drama about a woman who studied pastry making in Paris, and there are moments where her character is required to speak French, and I have to turn subtitles on because I do not understand a thing. And there are another character who's like that. And I really feel for the actors in this case, because imagine being told you need to speak French because this is integral to your character. I do think the French is not bad. I could understand what she was saying.
It sounded, you know what? It sounded to me like how somebody who's had to learn French as a second language to use it for a job rather than somebody who learned French out of passion like Shobana's character clearly did. And yeah, it was very functional. The French was very functional. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. You know, and there are little moments where one of the characters, a small character, asks her, who's going in for this same interview, asks her, is it this verb form, this form, and she answers. She obviously is a bit more of able to help people out with their language learning. Probably, if we had to see her really teaching, I might have been a little more critical, but certainly, yeah. I think it's functional. I can understand it. I wish Shobana would dub for herself. She's only done it once.
I wish. Yeah, that would. I think Shobana could have made a better effort learning French. I think, just because if you're dubbing for yourself rather than somebody else, you would have made more of an effort to get the accent right. But I think at this point, Bhagyashrie's voice has so intrinsically been part of every performance Shobana has had that I assume filmmakers think that people wouldn't be able to people would feel off listening to another voice coming out of her. Plus, Shobana she speaks in heavily accented Malayalam. She has a strong Tamil accent when she speaks in Malayalam, so that is probably one thing holding her back.
Yeah, I was wondering about the decision to always have her, but then that there's that thread in the film Salt and Pepper, where the character who's the dubbing artist complains, why do you hire these actresses from outside of Kerala just because they're pretty? Why don't you hire someone who can speak the language? Although that would put her out of a job. Yeah. One other character is the series actress played by KPSC Lalita.
Yes. She
again.
She just falls into stardom as an older woman who just decided to move to Chennai. It was a very interesting introduction to her.
And as you mentioned earlier, we do think in the beginning that she is somehow related, and everybody else assumes, because she's asked at one point, how are you related to them? Are you their aunt? Are you their grandmother? And she's very offended by grandmother. I'm not old enough to be their grandmother. It's yeah, you probably are. But she's
little boys.
And that's Santosh Shivan's son.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, the younger brother. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that she was in a What's Up yoga group with their actual aunt, and just decided, well, they need someone to go with them. I could do that. I love some of the agency that particularly the older women are given.
Absolutely. I think that was very refreshing. We honestly, because it's true, a lot of women are now alone after they've been widowed and their kids are abroad or something like that. And yeah, it's very nice to see them just, going about their lives, doing their own thing. And have you seen the movie Puduputam Kale on Prime or Netflix. The one with the little anthology series.
No,
It's
no,
that
I
one.
haven't.
Okay, so for me, in a lot of ways, this movie, because I watched Puduputam Kale first, this movie felt like a continuation of the first short film in that, which is by Sudha Kangara. It's Ilamai Ido Ido with Jairam and Urvashi and Kalyani um, and Jairam's son, um, Kalidasan. So in a lot of ways, this is you can take that idea of older people finding love, having agency in when their kids are grown and all their responsibilities are done, and it's good that we have that like these older actors are playing their age instead of
Oh
insisting
God,
on.
yes. Yes.
I mean, Moana and Mamoudou are never gonna start playing their age, but it's good that like sort of these B tier heroes are allowing themselves to age on screen.
One of the things I did want to ask about was the relationship between sort of Malayalis who go to Chennai, because it seems to me to happen a lot that they go to live in Chennai, and I'm wondering what sort of the motivations for that are.
To be honest, I don't know a lot about Chennai. It's one of those cities Malayalis move to that I actually don't know much about. Like I know about Bangalore, and I think it's because I think Kochi is still not that big a city. Um, Chennai, like Bangalore, like Dubai, is the three big cities that Malayalis get out to live big city life, and to have these dynamics that you only find in big cities. Um, and this is, once again, a sort of, when you talk about found family, you also have to think about why it's okay to reject your family of origin. Like the fact that Nikki kind of rejects her grandmother because she thinks her uh, grandmother doesn't like her, and you kind of get the feeling that like her mother is not a typical like stereotypical Indian mother. Her grandmother is not a stereotypical doting Indian grandmother, and she's kind of stuck in her ways and doesn't want to compromise with her granddaughter. And yeah, you kind of get the feel. This is another movie that underscores that you do get to choose your family, and you don't need to make yourself less to be part of your family of origin, or the guy you married and was abusing you.
Yeah, I was just it does, and it is a good device to, because if you pull people out of the place they come from and put them in a new place, it does allow you to start exploring some of those issues, kind of a fish out of water, fish out of family thing.
Yeah, and it creates. I mean, as you said, it creates a greater sense of agency about making choices for yourself rather than doing what your family, immediate and extended, wants you to do. I mean, we just talked about Pavam Cheyatavar Kallariyate and how that is very much embedded in the extended family, and how, you're kind of forced to go along with what the extended family wants, while people who are on their own out in the world living in cities get to choose their paths a lot more. And we're going to talk a lot more about this the next episode, I think. City life.
So, I mean, I guess that's a pretty good place to wrap up. I think our choices for the films that we found interesting or impactful probably are a little bit different from the mainstream, which is good.
Yeah, it's a new set of movies for people can look at, except for Varane Avashyamund. I think that's one of those movies that everybody liked.
And everybody should
Universally
watch.
loved.
I mean, I've seen it like 4 times already, and I don't tire of it. sometimes I watch a film and I'm like, it will be like pulling teeth if I have to watch you again. But this film is just so delightful and joyous and refreshing and interesting, that I would happily watch it again and again.
Yeah, I will say the Malayali organization in Chennai in this is like the doctor has a big role in it, and the fact that he just kind of like pushes Suresh Gopi into like because he climbed Everest or something into like becoming being the chief guest at their events is very funny. And Malayali associations are like that. They kind of bully you into doing things. Any Malayali who's lived out of Kerala knows that these associations are very function like that.
Yeah, I've seen that from outside. But I mean, again, that's something having been an expat, I can understand that a little bit. How you want to cling to a group of people because it's actually very comforting, and then the group dynamics kind of take over at some point.
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody, you start off with the idea of like wanting to get your community together, and then like the power struggles begin.
That's human nature, though.
Yeah.
So we've kind of summed up, and you've already touched on the fact that the next theme we're going to look at is urbanism or city life. Do you want to mention the films that we're going to look at?
Yeah, we have chosen a couple that we think highlight city life as shown in Malayalam cinema. Helen, Bangalore Days, and Betty Varada. I think they're all three different kinds of films, and I think they all have something different and interesting to say about city life.
So let's hope people are interested to come back and take a listen and see what we have to say.
That's right. All right, take care, Catherine.
You too. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Poland in Empathy podcast.
If you like what you're hearing, remember to come back for our next episode and share our podcast with your friends.
If you'd like to connect with us, you can email us at polandinempathy@gmail.com or reach out to us on our Twitter feed @polandinempathy. See you next time.